This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
People love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
Welcome, I'm Roger Stone, and this is the Stone Zone on the Red Apple Audio Network. This is where you get your daily fix on politics, and we give you a behind-the-scenes look about what's really going on in Disneyland on the Potomac, also known as Washington, D.C. On this day in history, 55 years ago, being February 27th, 1970, President Richard Milhous Nixon delivered remarks via radio hookup to astronauts aboard the Apollo 13 recovery ship, the USS Hornet. This was part of President Nixon's engagement with the space program, although tragically this would be overshadowed later by the Apollo 13 crisis in April of that year. It was a symbolic moment reflecting his administration's continued support for NASA. I heard this great clip last night, which really kind of summed up what I think. Here's heavyweight champion Floyd Mayweather.
I'm happy, but we're never happy. When we had Trump before, we didn't appreciate him, but I think Trump is a great president. He's the best president in my eyes. He's the best president we ever had. Great businessman, and that's what it's about.
The champ said it all. Under Donald Trump, I really think we are headed for a golden age here in America. That is an unprecedented age of peace, prosperity, transparency, security, justice, and yes, law and order. In that regard, President Trump has announced that China will be charged an additional 10% tariff, which begins on March 4th. Don't mess around with Donald Trump. Trump pointed to China's role in the production of the deadly drug fentanyl as part of his decision to levy a heavier tax on China. A large percentage of these drugs, much of them in the form of fentanyl, are made in and supplied by China, Trump wrote last night on Truth Social. More than 100,000 people died last year due to the distribution of these dangerous and highly addictive poisons. Millions of Americans and millions of people have died over the last 2 decades. The families of the victims are devastated and in many instances virtually destroyed. Trump will also be instituting his previously proposed tariffs on Mexico and Canada due to their role in allowing this flow of fentanyl through our borders to poison Americans. Drugs are still pouring into our country from Mexico and Canada at very high and unacceptable levels, the president said. We cannot allow this scourge to continue to harm the USA, and therefore, until it stops or until it is seriously limited, the proposed tariffs scheduled to go into effect on March 4th will indeed go into effect as scheduled. China will likewise be charged an additional 10% tariff on that date. The April 2nd reciprocal tariff date will remain in full force and effect. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and God bless America. Now, I know Donald Trump. I think at heart he is a free trader, meaning he wants fair reciprocal trade. That's trade where both trading partners benefit. The trade deals that really brought Donald Trump to politics, the one-size-fits-all trade deals, in which our trading benefits benefited mightily, but we didn't benefit at all, those days are over. Trump has also proposed replacing the Internal Revenue Service and getting away with the income tax, replacing that revenue with tariffs, which is what this country did until 1913. He's serious about this, folks. It's very, very real. Now there's a controversy between Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel over the release of the Jeffrey Epstein documents and records. Now, I was one of the first authors in the country to report on Jeffrey Epstein. If you go back to my book, The Clintons' War on Women, published in 2015, the longest chapter in the book is about Jeffrey Epstein. It was Jeffrey Epstein who put up the initial seed financing for the Clinton Foundation. It was Jeffrey Epstein who put up the original financing for the Clinton Global Initiative. But now we have seemingly a internal administration conflict. Now, I have a very high regard for Attorney General Pam Bondi. I know her well personally. I have an equally high regard for FBI Director Kash Patel, another personal friend. In a letter released earlier, Pam Bondi wrote, "Before you came into office, I requested a full and complete file set related to Jeffrey. In response to this request, I received about 200 pages of documents, which consisted primarily of flight logs, Epstein's list of contacts, and a list of victims' names and phone numbers. I should point out that I had both the flight logs and the Epstein Little Black Book, his list of contacts, all contained in my 2015 book, The Clintons' War on Women. By the way, I do that with full attribution with Nick Bryant, who's going to be joining us in the Stone Zone this Sunday. I repeatedly questioned," Bondi said, "that there a full set of documents responsive to my request, and was repeatedly assured by the FBI that we had received a full set of documents. Late yesterday, however, I learned from a source that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and the indictment of Epstein. Despite my repeated requests, the FBI never disclosed the existence of these files. When you and I spoke yesterday," Bondi wrote, "you were just as surprised as I was to learn this new information. By 8 a.m. tomorrow, that would be February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, audio and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. There will be no withholding or limitations to my or your access. The Department of Justice will ensure that any public disclosure of these files will be done in a manner to protect the privacy of the victims and in accordance with law, as I have done my entire career as a prosecutor." Bondi writes, "I am also directing you to conduct an immediate investigation into why my order to the FBI was not followed. You will deliver to me a comprehensive report of your findings and proposed personal action within 14 days. I appreciate your immediate attention to this important matter. I know that we are both committed to transparency for the American people, and I look forward to working with you to serve our president and our country." This is kind of what I expected to have happen. You see, I'm far more interested, rather than seeing the FAA manifest, which we've already seen, or seeing the flight logs that have been, the Little Black Book, that has already been disclosed. But my real interest is in the DVDs and the hard drives that the FBI retrieved from the safe of Jeffrey Epstein, both in his New York palatial home and his home on Epstein Island. Stay tuned to this developing story. One of my favorite actors, Gene Hackman, passed away at the age of 95. Now, The Producers with Zero Mostel and Gene Hackman is perhaps my favorite movie of all time. Hackman also starred in classic American films including Superman, The French Connection, Hoosiers, Unforgiven, Bonnie and Clyde, Enemy of the State, Crimson Tide, and The Royal Tenenbaums. Gene Hackman and his wife and dog were found dead in their Santa Fe home. Authorities are calling their death suspicious. Don't go away, because you're in the Stone Zone, and we'll be right back.
Want a website with unmatched power, speed, and control? Try Bluehost Cloud, the new web hosting plan from Bluehost, built for WordPress creators by WordPress experts. With 100% uptime, incredible load times, and 24/7 WordPress priority support, your sites will be lightning fast with global reach. And with Bluehost Cloud, your sites can handle surges in traffic no matter how big. Plus, you automatically get daily backups and world-class security. Get started now at Bluehost.com.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
BTW, FYI. Visit Nexplanon.com/RN to learn about Nexplanon. It's an tenagestrel implant, 68 milligrams radiopaque. Or ask your HCP IRL. Okay, TTYL.
Build a routine with Ollie that supports your wellness needs, like getting your daily vitamins and minerals with Ollie's multi-gummies, or keeping your mood upbeat with all the vitamin D in Hello Happy. Give your gut health some support with probiotics, and wake up feeling refreshed after taking Ollie Sleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at a Walmart or Target near you or at ollie.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
Now, get him his own. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back to the Stone Zone here on the Red Apple Audio Network. Only yesterday, we talked about the fact that FBI Director James Comey initiated an off-the-books operation to infiltrate Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign with two extremely attractive undercover spies working for the FBI. Their assignment was to compromise sexually members of the Trump staff to try to collect dirt on Trump or his campaign. But the real villain, to me, is former CIA Director John Brennan. Now, the first month of the Trump administration has been serendipitous, with bureaucrats being put on the defensive and corrupt acts becoming unearthed through the DOJ task force every single day. But as the new revelations come to pass, the egregious behavior that happened in the past must not be forgotten or forgiven, and those individuals most responsible for calling the shots must be punished accordingly. Former CIA Director John Brennan is more culpable than perhaps anyone else in the genesis of Russiagate. Even though he was fired immediately by President Trump upon his initial arrival in the White House, Brennan sowed the seeds of Trump's destruction behind the scenes throughout his campaign and during the presidential transition. Brennan's subversive stain permeated through Trump's four-year term and caused immeasurable damage to this country. Brennan was aware that the infamous Steele dossier that was used to justify the FISA warrants to spy on Trump's campaign staff was a fraud. His claim that Russian intelligence hacked the Democrat National Committee with an online attack has never been proven. I know from my own trial that the government has no actual proof of an online hack. But Brennan, true to CIA form, laundered this dubious information into the public mindset as part of his cynical campaign to undermine Trump. John Brennan is an admitted communist. He admitted that he voted for the communist candidate for president in the 80s. He also is the man who lied under oath to the Senate about spying on a Senate committee and wiretapping and online surveillance of Senate staffers who were investigating his illegal use of torture. He's also the man who, as the station chief in Rita, signed the visa for 4 of the hijackers who attacked America on 9/11. Add on top of that the fact that it was Brennan who was the father, the orchestrator of the entire Russian collusion hoax. The Durham report provides undisputable evidence that Brennan briefed President Obama and Vice President Joe Biden about the Steele dossier, which he knew was a fraud, because he was fully aware of the fact that Hillary Clinton's campaign plotted to use it to frame Trump as a puppet of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Brennan also shamefully set up over 24 Trump advisors, one of whom will join us today, George Papadopoulos, for surveillance by the corrupt U.S. intelligence apparatus. You see, what they did was to go to the so-called Five Eyes, the English-speaking nations' intelligence services, that's England, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and so on, urging them to surveil, he said, bump, that means spy on, 26 Americans who were friends or associates of Donald Trump. I was one of those 26 people. My guest today, George Papadopoulos, a Trump campaign advisor who was later falsely charged and convicted in the Russian collusion hoax, was another of the 26. Brennan was also instrumental in the illegal FISA warrants. The FISA court is a special court set up to approve warrants and wiretaps on American citizens, and these were deployed in the lead-up to the 2016 presidential election, which targeted Trump's most vocal supporters. According to Newsmax, a U.S. court found in 2023 that misuse of the FISA courts extended far beyond the mere targeting of Trump backers, citing the FBI, saying they found the mechanism had been used improperly 300,000 times in recent years to illegally spy on American citizens. Brennan was also involved in the electoral interference and censorship program that helped screw Trump out of his rightful second term in 2020. It was John Brennan who was among the 51 former intelligence officials who penned a letter proclaiming the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop as, quote, Russian disinformation and propaganda, which is an absurd falsehood promulgated by strong-armed woke social media corporations into putting a Big Brother censorship apparatus in place to keep the legitimate story of Hunter Biden's laptop, much of which was revealed right here on the Red Apple Audio Network, from impacting the minds of voters on Election Day. Brennan and his deep state co-conspirators, actually accurately called spies who lied by the New York Post, are finding it difficult to cope with the fact that the public refused to buy their nonsense and reelected Trump to his historic second term in what was the greatest single comeback in American political history. Yes, Brennan and his fellow federal apparatchiks see themselves as the sagacious gatekeepers who possess a holy mandate in determining who should be the leader of the free world. It is this cabal, those who are the arbiters of democracy, not the will of the people, as that term's traditional definition is accepted, who, according to this self-serving ideologue, are above the law. Last night I saw Brennan on X complaining that he was on Kash Patel's hit list. Well, of course you are, John. That's because there's substantial evidence that you are guilty of treason. And for the crime of treason, there is no statute of limitations. The likes of John Brennan has lorded over Washington, D.C. for far too long. As a result, we have a limitless debt, endless wars, the unconstitutional expansion of power, and the decimation of fundamental rights. But like Vice President J.D. Vance says, there's a new sheriff in town, and Sheriff Trump is putting bad hombres like Brennan to justice. Because of his long history of anti-American behavior, John Brennan would certainly be the perfectly disgraced official to make it into a harsh example. Brennan confessed during a lie detector test, as I said earlier, that he had been an operative for the Communist Party of America during 4 different election cycles. Due to institutional rot, this startling revelation somehow did not preclude Brennan from serving in the CIA. Now, former FBI Special Agent John Guandolo, he's also been with us here on the Red Apple Audio Network. He was a crucial leader of the FBI's counterterrorism efforts following the September 11th attacks, revealed that Brennan himself actually converted to radical Islam, becoming a Wahhabist in an ornate ceremony while working as the CIA station chief in Saudi Arabia. Talk about a conflict of interest. Brennan's connections made him the perfect CIA director, as President Barack Hussein Obama corroded every American institution to soften the nation up for its collapse into socialism. Brennan was the perfect CIA director to funnel arms and money into the hands of ISIS militants as they wreaked havoc across the Middle East and Europe. He was the perfect CIA director to oversee the Russiagate frame job against President Donald Trump. And he will be the first CIA director, perhaps the first in history, the first in the history of the agency's existence, in fact, to face treason charges. And then, of course, after being convicted due to overwhelming evidence of guilt, he could indeed receive corporal punishment as an enemy of the American Republic, because the penalty for treason is capital punishment. This is Roger Stone. You're in the Stone Zone. Don't go away, because George Papadopoulos, one of the victims of the Russian hoax, joins us next.
You found your person. Now let the knot help you with everything else. The Knot connects you to the wedding inspo, vendors, venues, and planning tools you need to make your day totally you. Having helped plan 25 million weddings, we've got your back when it comes to every little detail like RSVPs, budgets, and more. Because your wedding comes to life with the connections that matter the most. Get started at theknot.com/audio. The Knot. Let's plan your wedding together.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. During tax season, your personal info travels to a lot of places. Between payroll, your tax consultant, and the IRS. If your W-2 gets exposed, that's just the ticket for identity thieves. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed or your money back. Don't let identity thieves take you for a ride. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Stepping Stone.
This is the Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back. You're in the Stone Zone here on the Red Apple Audio Network. First with breaking news. After 2 years of confinement, Andrew and Tristan Tate have left Romania. Now, the Tate brothers, Andrew and Tristan Tate, are proponents of mental and physical fitness, sobriety, responsibility, spirituality, patriotism, and yes, masculinity. That makes them hated among those who have the woke mind virus. Their lawyer, Joseph McBride, said yesterday Romania rightly decided it did not have the evidence needed to hold the Tate brothers any longer. Today, Andrew and Tristan Tate are free. They have landed at a undisclosed location somewhere in Florida, and all eyes are now on their Florida defamation case. The Tate brothers were prosecuted on charges of human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized criminal group to sexually exploit women. But now Romanian officials admit that they lack the evidence to prosecute them for that crime. Upon the news that the Tate brothers had touched down in Florida, however, Governor Ron DeSantis announced that, Florida Attorney General is now looking at them to see what state hooks and jurisdictions we may have to be able to deal with this. Listen to Ron DeSantis.
Is he welcome here? What the state do to send back to Romania or whatever?
We have no involvement in that. I read about it through the media. Clearly, the federal government has jurisdiction, whether they want to rebuff his entry into the United States, and I have confidence that whether it's Pam Bondi or Kristi Noem, that they will be looking at that. I do know our Attorney General, James Uthmeier, is looking at what state hooks and jurisdiction we may have to be able to deal with this. But the reality is no, Florida is not a place where you're welcome. With that type of conduct in the air. And I don't know how it came to this. We were not involved. We were not notified. I found out through the media that this was something that was happening.
Hey, Governor DeSantis, whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty? If the Romanian officials who are hostile now admit that they didn't have any such evidence against the Tate brothers, what makes you believe that you can find such evidence? Joining me now is one of the victims of the Russian collusion hoax. George Papadopoulos is a former foreign policy advisor to both President Donald Trump and Dr. Ben Carson's presidential campaign from 2011 to 2015. He worked as a research associate at the Hudson Institute, as well as the director of the London Center for International Law. He is currently a contributor to numerous media outlets and the best-selling author of Deep State Target, How I Got Caught in the Crosshairs of the Plot to Bring Down President Trump. George Papadopoulos joins us now in the Stone Zone.
Roger, it's a real pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
You know, George, things are moving so quickly. I was very anxious to get you on today because you, like me, were a victim of the Russian collusion hoax. It turned your life upside down. I want to ask you off the top, what are your thoughts on the report that Kash Patel's FBI is now investigating former FBI Director James Comey's off-the-books operation, what we call a honeypot operation against the 2016 Trump campaign? This is where Comey sent two very attractive undercover FBI agents into the Trump campaign in an attempt to sexually compromise members of the Trump staff and to try to collect dirt on Donald Trump or his campaign. Your reaction?
I think this is Exhibit A and promises made, promises kept by President Trump and the Trump administration. This is looking to be the most transparent administration in modern American history, and it looks like accountability is coming to those who committed egregious violations against Americans, including those who worked on the 2016 Donald Trump campaign, President Trump, the administration, and attempted to disenfranchise 75 to 80 million voters who supported President Trump and the MAGA movement. The reason why this development is so jaw-dropping, Roger, is because this is the first time that in modern history, I believe, that an FBI director has looked at members of a campaign in the middle of a campaign season and said, we need to target these folks. And how are we going to target them? We're not going to do it with an adequate predicate. We're not going to use probable cause. We're not going to use the Constitution or the rule of law or a just effort. We're going to basically try to frame them and set them up. And that's why James Comey, according to this bombshell report, had an off-the-books investigation into people like myself, others that were way before the launch of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation in the summer of 2016. So what this really showcases is that Donald Trump and his advisors were essentially framed, just like Joseph Stalin said, show me the man, I'll find you the crime. They were planting dirt, planting evidence to then create a fake pretext to go after President Trump and his administration. And it is now just being exposed. And this is something that I think all Americans, Roger, on the left, the center, and the right should be resoundingly applauding.
So, George, did you have any direct experience with this honeypot operation, and did you yourself sleep with either one of them?
I did not sleep with any honeypots. There were certainly efforts to seduce me and to compromise me in that effort. That's something that did happen. I was smart enough to evade that. I was a single man at the time. I wasn't married, so it was actually very strange that they would just go after a single guy instead of somebody who was married or had a family with these honeypots to try and sabotage them the way that they could have others. But I know, Roger, I was smart enough to not only evade the grips of the honeypots, but numerous other assets, both domestic and global.
I knew the answer to that question before I asked it, but I had to ask. Let me ask you this. What do you think of the reports that former CIA Director John Brennan was sending spies into the Trump campaign? And that now seems to be getting overshadowed in the wake of this Comey news. In an earlier segment, I mentioned that it was John Brennan who went to the so-called Five Eyes, the English-speaking nations, and their intelligence agencies, and sent them a list of 26 individual associates and supporters of Donald Trump, and urged them to, quote, bump those people. I was one of them. You were one of them. Carter Page was one of them. Unfortunately, this story, which I think is a bombshell, kind of got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, I think it got lost in the shuffle only because every single day or week we're starting to see really how pervasive the rotten corruption in Washington, D.C. and institutions around the world really are. One day you have a story about USAID and how less than 1% of the U.S. federal budget was earmarked to basically regime change abroad and to financing leftist propaganda at home that was designed to spread propaganda and disinformation against candidate Trump, the MAGA movement, and to attack traditional conservative values. Then a week later, you have this honeypot information coming out about the former director of the FBI, and then you have the Epstein files being released. So, of course, every single week there's some new disturbing allegation or evidence that links directly to the Obama administration or the Biden administration or high-level Democrats. Now, you're absolutely right. We cannot forget the core of what the scandal really was, and that was that President Obama at the time weaponized not only domestic intelligence, but foreign intelligence in a true collusion effort to sabotage the 2016 Trump campaign and then to spy on that campaign and to try to derail his presidency. President Trump survived this by going on offense. He survived it by having very strong allies who were thrown into fire the way you were, the way I was, the way General Flynn were, and we did not fold. We fought back, and we just stuck to the truth, Roger. We got it out there, and now these people are probably going to be prosecuted, and that's a very good thing.
Folks, you're listening to the Stone Zone on the Red Apple Audio Network, and we'll be right back with George Papadopoulos.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
Now, get him his own. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
We're talking to George Papadopoulos, former foreign policy advisor to President Donald Trump and the author of the best-selling book, The Deep State Target, How I Got Caught in the Crosshairs of the Plot to Bring Down President Donald Trump. First of all, George, you and your lovely Italian wife, Simona, have a new podcast on X. Tell us about that.
Yes, thanks. Thank you for that, Roger. We've actually had the honor and the privilege to have you as one of our first guests on Global View. It's a new show that we've launched on YouTube just a few weeks ago, and it's really taking off. We're around episode 19 now, and what it really is attempting to do is to bring in influencers, cultural icons, and political powerhouses from not only the United States, but globally for very in-depth, interesting conversations to discuss the world post-Trump 2024 election victory and how it's really shaken up so many various industries. It's been very fun. It's been thrilling, and we're very proud to see it grow.
Well, we wish you the very, very best of luck with that. Now, here's a question for you. The chief prosecutor, in my case, Aaron Zelinsky, was also a prosecutor in your case. We now know, based on a report on Just the News, that he altered FBI 302 documents. Those are the documents that memorialize the questioning of a suspect or a target by the FBI. He actually altered your 302 in order to frame you so that you would be convicted. Do you think that Aaron Zelinsky, who resigned as the assistant U.S. attorney in Baltimore only weeks ago, should be disbarred and prosecuted along with James Comey?
Roger, my very intimate experience with Mr. Zelinsky was very disturbing, to say the least. This was a ruthless person that would go to any extent to shred normalcy, the rule of law, and the Constitution to basically get a fake conviction in pursuit of political power for what I think were his ultimate clients, and that is the Democrat Party. I've always said it from day one. The Comey, the Mueller investigation was there to cover up for the illegal activities of the Comey era FBI and all of the issues that we're now just learning about what Comey was really up to against Donald Trump and his campaign and the administration. So certainly, if Comey is launching illegal operations and investigations, not only without predicate, but which are completely off the books, and that the CIA is using foreign governments to do their dirty work, like you explained that, and you referenced the reporting about that. And Zelensky was then afterwards appointed along with Mueller to try to cover it up and to try to frame not only myself but you, and to try and rewrite history by framing President Trump as a Russian operative, and then to probably have him impeached and convicted. Then certainly I think rogue people like that should certainly be prosecuted, disbarred, and showcased to the American people as an example for what should never happen again in this country.
So you were, as I recall, and I read your terrific book, Deep State Target, How I Got Caught in the Crosshairs of the Plot to Bring Down President Trump. You were entrapped by a mysterious professor, college professor named Mifsud. Tell us about that.
Yes, it goes exactly into how you describe the foreign elements with the CIA. After I stopped working on the Ben Carson campaign, after he dropped out and he endorsed candidate Trump, I then joined the Trump campaign, and I had been based in London for some time before and after working on the Trump campaign. And I had been working at an institute in London, which was basically filled with former Western diplomats, former ambassadors, people that would work, with the State Department, extremely, Western allied, Western oriented, nothing to do with Russians, nothing to do with the East in general. And it was through this institute that facilitated this meeting at another university in Rome called Link Campus, which, according to David Ignatius, trains people like the CIA and the FBI. And I meet him, and one day, unsolicited, after having a couple of meetings with this person, trying to understand what Western connections he has as somebody that was a foreign policy advisor, he tells me, hey, that the Russians have Hillary's emails. Now, later, this person's gone hiding, Roger, for the last 8 years. This was a person that was making his living networking in Washington, D.C., London, and Brussels. And the way he's gone underground and has been at the center of 4 different investigations from Comey all the way to Durham, I think he's being covered up. I think the John Durham investigation covered him up. Certainly Comey and Mueller did too. But I think finally, Roger, with Kash Patel as the director of the FBI, John Ratcliffe at the head of the CIA, and your friend Tulsi Gabbard at DNI, who's an absolutely wonderful pick and patriot, I think we will finally have some of these records declassified. I think we'll finally have some transparency into who was running this operation, including people like John Brennan, who's sweating bullets right now, just like Comey is. And then hopefully people like Mifsud do come in front of the halls of Congress and tell the American people exactly what he was up to, who was telling him to set me up, and for him to point fingers and to hold those people accountable.
One of the greatest pieces of television I ever saw was Congressman Matt Gaetz grilling Special Counsel John Durham about why he couldn't find Professor Mifsud. I mean, he has the FBI, the CIA, and the Department of Justice at his command, but they still couldn't find this mysterious college professor who set you up. Not credible. John Durham's report took 5 long years. Why? Well, he wanted to make sure the statute of limitations had run out so that neither Vice President Joe Biden or President Barack Obama or National Security Advisor Susan Rice or FBI Director James Comey or CIA Director John Brennan or Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe could be prosecuted. And then Durham prosecutes a man at the very bottom of the totem pole, a lawyer named Michael Sussman, which is like charging the guy who drove the getaway car for double parking while you let the bank robbers get away. And in the District of Columbia, even he was acquitted. There can be no fair trial of any Trump supporter, any Republican, any independent thinker, any non-Democrat in the District of Columbia. I want to thank my guest, George Papadopoulos, for joining us today in the Stone Zone. Again, his book, Deep State Target, How I Got Caught in the Crosshairs of the Plot to Bring Down President Trump. It is, I think he is in total agreement with me when I say that America is about to embark on a golden age. It is nothing less than an unprecedented age of peace, prosperity, security, transparency, security, and justice. These are going to be the greatest days in American history. And as President Donald Trump told us, paraphrasing Al Jolson, you ain't heard nothing yet. Folks, this is the age of Trump, and you can get all the Inside Skinny every day, 5 days a week, right here on the Red Apple Audio Network. I thank you for joining us today in the Stone Zone. I urge you to download the Red Apple Audio Network on your phone. Get it in the App Store so you don't miss any of the incredibly entertaining and informational programming we do here at Red Apple. Until tomorrow, then, God bless you and God speed and God bless the United States of America.